for coming this morning. My name is Sam Taylor. I'm the Chief of Police of the Lakeland Police Department, and we're here today to give you some additional information on an arrest that we made on a homicide that occurred in 2018. To my right and your left are some of the family members of the victim. The mom will be speaking. Also to my left and your right are some of the investigators, forensic folks, and some of our detectives that worked on the case. Gary Gross will be the main speaker. He'll speak after me, and then after that we'll make mom wants to say a few words about her son, and then we'll take some questions after that. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We're here to update you today on a homicide that occurred in July 3rd of 2018 on West Crawford Street. A young man, 14 years old, by the name of Rex Honors IV, was the victim of a homicide, and I'm going to let Detective Gross get into the details of it, and then at the very end we'll take some questions. But I think this highlights some of the effort that goes in, not only from the detectives that you see behind us, but some of the ones that are standing back in the audience, of some of the good work that they do every single day. Just because it seems like a case is not going anywhere, or maybe that we're not working on it, I can assure you that we are. And so there's a lot of forensic details, thousands and thousands of bits of information and data that have to be extracted from phones and computers, and they have to be meticulously sorted through and gone through, and that's what was the crux of helping build the case and brings us to where we are today. And I hope that the family understands. I had an opportunity to meet with them before we came in here this morning and brief them up on some of the work that's been done behind the scenes. I hope this brings the mother a little bit of closure and an opportunity to let you know that we still care about Rex and your family. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gary Gross, and he can brief you up on the details.
Okay, thank you. So the chief started this cold case unit June of 2023. So I am a civilian investigator. I retired as a sworn law enforcement officer with 32 years of experience. And on this case, Detective Carden, who is sworn, assisted me on this case through every interview. Have to have that sworn component when we get into search warrants and everything else. So what I'm going to do today is take you through step by step on this case, and we're going to talk about what led us up to the arrest. And then afterwards, I'm going to have Mon come up and give a few words, and we'll open it up for any questions that you guys have from us. But first of all, I want to say that it's a little confusing on this case, so that you understand the arrest affidavit. I'm going to refer to the suspect as Rex Honors. He's Rex Honors III. Our victim is Rex Honors IV, but we're going to call him Stuffy. That's what the family calls him. That's what everybody knew him by, so we're going to call him Stuffy. And you'll hear me refer to that as we go through this case. And so on July 3rd is when this murder occurred. Rex Honors IV, Stuffy, was 14 years old, and his brother reported him missing at 4:22 a.m. That's a very important time, and I want you to remember that, because I'm going to come back to that a few times throughout this press release. The LPD officers that responded to a report of a missing person searched the house, and they found Stuffy deceased in the backyard with some type of an injury to his forehead. He's laying in the grass. There's blood on his forehead. The autopsy that was done later on that day determined that he died of a single gunshot wound to the forehead. Now, detectives early on, they suspected that Rex Honors III, the brother, was responsible for this, but at that time, as they worked this case, especially that day, they lacked enough evidence, probable cause, witness statements to move forward. And over the years, that case eventually became a cold case. The detectives retired and moved on. And back in 2018, I was the public information officer, and I remember this case. I did the press release on it, so it stood out in my mind, this 14-year-old that was killed, which is why we started working this case. Detective Carden and I jumped into this in May of this year, and we started working in cases. Now, what allowed us to move forward is advances in cell phone technology, digital forensics. There was 5 different cell phones in this case that we need to look at. We wrote new search warrants for the cell phones and dove into that, and that's a lot of data to look at. We also conducted over 17 interviews and spent countless hours, I think around 800, and we're still working on this. Just because we made an arrest, we're still looking at other evidence that still needs to come in and work in this case. But to give you an idea, it's a little overwhelming on this cell phone how much digital evidence there is. Just on the suspect's cell phone, just his, there's 26,378 pieces of digital evidence that we looked at, which is, photos, videos, pictures, it's just a lot. The victim's phone, 28,338. And one of our witnesses' phones that we looked at, 17,886. That's over 72,000 pieces of digital evidence to look at. That's a lot to go through. But you got to look at each one, and you'll see why in a minute. One piece of digital evidence can make a case. And in this case, there's quite a few, but we'll go over some of those. Rex Saunders III was the suspect from day one. We learned he had been arrested in Albany, Georgia. He was arrested on August 16th. Now, they call it ag assault. If it was here in Florida, it'd be ag battery, that he stabbed somebody. But their language is a little different up there with law, but he's in jail for ag assault. He's still incarcerated at the Daugherty County Jail. We'd worked the case enough that we felt confident and the timing was right. We didn't want to go too early, but we now knew that we had enough information. We felt comfortable in talking to him, so we went up there on October 15th to interview him. During that interview, we got a full confession to what took place. Things that he told us that were law enforcement sensitive, that had never been released to the public before he knew, and only he would have known, being the suspect. So this is now what we know occurred. On the night of the murder, Stuffy, a witness and the suspect were at this house on Crawford Street where the murder occurred. They're just looking at social media, playing video games, hanging out as the night progressed. We do know from talking to this witness that they started fighting. And we're not sure why, but this fight escalated to the point where they broke that table. You see there in photograph number 1, that was in the living room. That table was broke there in a fight, and this fight kept going. Now, this witness, he knew that there was a couple of different firearms in the house, and he was scared. He's 16 years old. So at this point, they're fighting so rough, he was scared. He left the house. He left on foot. He went a short distance down the driveway. Now, this driveway it's fairly long. In fact, there's a photograph of it right there. It's 256 feet. As soon as he got onto the road, he hears a gunshot go off, one gunshot. Now, he knew, in his heart, that Stuffy was shot, and he was scared to death. I understand he's 16 years old, doesn't know what to do. He just leaves on foot, and he gets the heck out of there. He believes that he was shot. So based on this evidence, a confession at this time, we now know the suspect was shot at close range, 2 to 4 inches away from the forehead. This is based on the image report. They found stippling, it's a gunpowder burn. The gunpowder from the gun burned into his skin. That only happens when you're 2 to 4 inches away. When he shot him, we know that from the image report. We know that the suspect then picked him up under his arms in the bedroom, the northeast bedroom, dragged him out of the bedroom, down the hallway, through the living room where he stopped briefly, and then through the kitchen and out a sliding glass door out into the yard. Photograph number 3 there. I know it may be difficult to see, but when he took him outside, the grass was at least 4 to 5 feet high. And he dragged him through that grass, and he left him laying out in the grass. He then admitted, this is what he told us, only the detectives knew and the crime scene knew, that the crime scene appeared to have been cleaned up. We know he admitted to this. He admitted to cleaning up the crime scene with rags, towels. He used some bleach. And then he said that he got rid of the guns, the 2 guns that were in the house, and all the bloody towels. He got rid of those at a nearby neighbor's house. He wouldn't tell us which one. He just said he threw it in the trash can somewhere down the road. He then makes a series of phone calls and what we think was an attempt to create an alibi. He first called girlfriend number 1, made several calls and attempts to reach her, and she realized this when she looked at her phone. She called him back at 3:48 in the morning. Remember, he didn't call the police until 4:22. She called him back at 3:48, and she said he was crying on the phone, and he said his brother was dead. This is before he called the police to report him missing. He would not have known his brother was deceased at 3:48 in the morning. He then made several phone calls to girlfriend number 2. And at 3:57 in the morning, he talked to her for 16 minutes, 30 seconds, and that ended at 4:13 in the morning, pretty close to when he called 911 to report his brother missing. She said he was out of breath. She thought that stuck out in her mind. She thought that was strange. And he said he was looking for his brother. He said he got to the house. He said, it's not broken into. There's no broken glass. Oh, there he is. And then he hangs up. She doesn't know why he hangs up. She's not real sure what happened, but this is what he's telling her at that time in the morning. Again, when he hangs up, that would have been 4:13 prior to him calling the police department. This would have been 9 minutes before he called the police department. And, it's what he didn't tell her as well. And that was when he walked in the house, there was visible signs. You would have seen the blood. He didn't tell her anything about any blood. He didn't tell her that. He just hung up. Another piece of evidence in this case was next door at let's say at a nearby house. There was a house that had installed the day before a surveillance camera. The day before this camera was put in, and this camera captures the suspect talking on his phone, and he's in a panic. Now, I can demonstrate this. The phone, as you see, it's lit up, and he's going up and down. He's in a panic, frantic mode. He's just going crazy with this. And he's calling. It's the exact same time you see on the video. You see him call girlfriend number 1, and then you see number 2. You see him on the video with the phone going up and down, talking to these 2 individuals. So that was captured as well. Rex Honors III suggested to the police and others on social media while he's here at the police department and early that morning that possibly a burglary had occurred. We know that's incorrect. That's a false statement to mislead the detectives and the police. And we know that because we've talked to some of the individuals that lived in the house that a burglary never happened. Nothing was stolen. The TV, the jewelry, coins, everything that would normally be taken during a burglary was there. They said a burglary did not occur. So we know that was a lie, again, and that was an attempt on his end to mislead the detectives. Throughout the morning, the suspect also sent several text messages that his brother had been shot in the head. And you got to ask yourself, well, how would he know this? The officer only knew that he had a wound to his forehead. He's laying in the grass. That information had never been shared with the public. It wasn't released in a press release. And they didn't know until that day around 1 o'clock when the autopsy was completed the manner and cause of death, that he was shot once in the head. Only the person who did this would know, and that was Rex Honors III. In his first interview in 2018, when the detectives brought him down here and interviewed him, he denied having any firearms in the house. He had no knowledge of any weapons in that house on Crawford. However, one of those pieces of evidence, that one of those 28,200 or 338 pieces of evidence we looked at, we found a video on the suspect's phone. That video was taken a little over 4 hours before the murder occurred, and it's him and the victim doing a rap video. Each one has a gun, and some of the lyrics in that video is, "You're fixing to die tonight." Now, that video was on July 2nd, like I said, a little over 4 hours, 10:54 p.m. before the murder occurred. It kind of foreshadows what was to come. The forensic examination of the witness's cell phone, who left at 3 a.m., the young man, who was 16 years old, showed that he had tried to contact 27 different times family members. He's scared. Again, he's 16 years old. He just, he's not sure what to do. And those calls started around 3:41 in the morning. So when he heard that gunshot, again, he knew what had happened. He's just in a panic mode. We know that from the digital forensic evidence, the new evidence that we've looked at. And technology has changed so much. Our technical services unit, which we have some members up here today, what you can do today is going to change in 4 or 5 months from now. So a lot of this new evidence that we got was not accessible back in 2018. So we got a lot off these cell phones and the search warrants that we did. The original responding officer said he noticed a trail of blood throughout the house. The father who we talked to, who went back in after the crime scene unit had cleared the house and the police are gone, one of the first things he noticed was what appeared to be blood that was cleaned up in the bedroom, kitchen, and living room area. But in contrast, the suspect, when he called 911 to report his brother missing, who said he was in the house 10 minutes, never ever once mentioned to the dispatcher that he saw blood. And it's all throughout the house. But he did determine during that 10 minutes that he walked through the house that his brother wasn't there. He also told the dispatcher that little things that was kind of strange, like he noticed a pizza box on the floor. He noticed his brother's shirt. But all the lights were on. He told the dispatcher when he went in the house, all the lights were on. He should have seen that blood. It was right there in front of him. He never once mentioned to the dispatcher that blood was throughout the house. Honors said he tried to call the victim. False statement. We know from the forensic exam now, the digital evidence that we got, there's no evidence on his phone that he tried to call Stuffy. There's no evidence on Stuffy's phone that the victim tried to call him. That's another attempt for him to mislead the police in this investigation. So in summary, here's what we know happened. Honors admitted to shooting a victim from a standing point. During the interview up in Georgia, we said, "Show us." He stood up in the interview. He said he turned his head, he didn't look, he closed his eyes, and he said he shot the victim from about 6 feet away. And he demonstrated that during the interview. He's the only one who would know this information. Again, remember I told you the autopsy report said he was shot once. Well, the ME and the detectives are the only ones that had the information that that bullet went in here and it exited the base of the skull, a downward trajectory. So when the victim, when the suspect gave us his statement, he said he was standing near the doorway, he turned his head and he shot, and he said the victim was on the bed, a downward trajectory. Only he would have known that, and that matched up with what the medical examiner told us. So one last thing I'd like to mention is it kind of helped us through this case. It was a lot to go through, a little over 800 hours. And I told the mother this and the family as well. And we do this on every case. And especially on this case, when you walk in the cold case office, we put a picture of Stuffy up on the wall. so that we can see that every day. Every day we know our purpose. We're motivated to keep moving this case forward. And we know that just because this case is solved, that it's not going to erase the pain, that the family has, but it does give some closure and allows, Stuffy to have a voice and to be remembered. So at this point, I'm going to have the mother come up and ask her if she wants to give a few words about Stuffy. When she's done, then I'll open it up for any questions that you have, and then I'll turn it back over to the chief of police. But, Mom, would you like to come up here and give a few words on Stuffy? If you can. If not, it's okay, but if you'd like to come up. It's all right. It's okay.
My name is Antoinette. Stuffy was only 14. He was a normal child. He loved school. He loved sports. He didn't deserve it. All I want to know is why you did this to my son. He didn't even get to live his life. All he did every day is smile. He was a good kid. He was a normal 14-year-old child what kids do. He didn't bother nobody. He wasn't in the streets. He wasn't in no type of games. He didn't do nothing. He just had to go to school and have fun.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that with us. But before I turn it back over to Chief Taylor, I do want to thank the members of our technical services unit who worked with us on this case. A lot of evidence to go through. Our senior crime analyst, Brenda Wallace, giving her constant information as we go through this. Members of our violent crimes unit, we would work with them and what step to move forward. And I will say on this case, the state attorney's office, meeting with the state attorney's office every couple of weeks to help us move this case forward. I appreciate all their help. And then Detective Carden, who is doing double duty of his other job and then also assisting on this case with every interview. One thing that he always said, and I appreciate it, is some days it's tough. You may knock on 3 or 4 doors, you can't find somebody, but he just said, you're chopping wood, man, and you got to keep moving forward. You may get a little splinter that day, chopping wood, but eventually you're going to hit that tree hard enough and it's going to come down. And in this case, it did, and we're able to make an arrest. So I appreciate all his effort as well. Chief, I'll turn it back over to you. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Well, I think this is a visual example of the trauma that the family goes through, and it's not a 1 hour CSI show on TV, right? This is real life. This family's going to deal with this the rest of their life. That day in July changed their lives forever. And so I think it's a visual manifestation of the pain is still there, 7 years later. So I want to reiterate what Gary said. There's a lot of good work that happens every single day by the men and women of the Lakeland Police Department, and not just Lakeland Police Department, of police agencies all over the country. We're not unique that we have a cold case unit, and I'm grateful that when I approached Gary 4 or 5 years ago and said, hey, do I have an offer for you? And Gary had retired. He had spent 32 years in law enforcement, was a sergeant, worked child sex crime cases, and was looking to get back in as a civilian. And he did, and he takes these things seriously. And so I appreciate his effort, and he's tenacious with these things. And this young man, the gentleman that we arrested is still in jail in Georgia. He'll be brought back eventually. That'll be between the sheriff's office in Georgia and the sheriff's office here in Polk County. When he gets transported back to the county, he's got some stabbing charges he's got to face up there, so they may not want to send him down here until he answers for those cases as well. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them and make anybody else available that can answer the questions. So, yes, ma'am.
Gary mentioned technological advances.
Sure.
Since 2018, are there any specific examples you can give us of what wasn't available then and is available?
Yeah, I think it's just digesting all the data. The data was probably there, but to putting in a digestible form, and I don't want to get too technical because that absolutely is not my area of expertise, and I rely on these folks over here to my left. But it's just the voluminous information that's there and making some sort of sense to it and putting a timeline to it, and putting it in programs and buying the programs and being able to understand what the data means, understand what the GPS locations and the latitude and longitude and the timestamps, and understanding what all that means. I think it's was available. It's just very tedious, and there's some refinement that has gone on in that software genre that allowed us to make it more understandable to us, if that answers your question.
And what has the suspect been doing for the last 7 years? Has he been in Georgia the whole time?
He's been up in Georgia since 2019. He's been busy up there. He has definitely a criminal history here, but he's been involved in quite a bit up there. But you'd have to call Albany, Georgia to talk to them about his activities up there. But he's living up there now. Any other questions?
Are you aware of the 16-year-old witness in 2018?
We were. Yeah, we were. He was interviewed at the time. Yes, ma'am. I don't know that he was 100% forthcoming. I think he told us a version of what he wanted us to know at the time, and I'll let Gary opine on that.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it. He's 16. He was scared. He left. He was interviewed by the police. What he didn't tell the detectives back then was that he heard that gunshot. And when I said a lot of our witnesses, they're now parents. They have kids. He understands having a kid of his own, how important it is. So he come forward with that new information, as well as some of our other witnesses that we talked to, with new information that helped us move this case forward.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, it seems like an exact motive is known at this timeline.
We just know we'll never know. He's the only one that's going to know. Some witnesses said it could have been over girls. Some said they were fighting and it got out of control. It's obvious from that table that's broke. And we do have that one witness who left that they were fighting hard and heavy. Maybe that was the reason why. But he didn't say during the interview up in Georgia why exactly that he did that shooting.
How old was the suspect at the time?
He was 21, and our victim was 14.
You mentioned the suspect cleaned up the crime scene. Was there no DNA evidence of the initial crime scene or the drug analysis of the car?
Great question, and detectives dealt with that back then. The suspect having lived there on and off, that DNA really wouldn't mean a thing to us because he stayed in the house. They were play fighting, so we knew his DNA would be on him. So that kind of was something that worked against us with him living there too on and off. Any other questions?
Mention his last name.
Yes.
Tinsley?
Tinsley. Tinsl.
All right. Very good. Again, thank you for coming, and we appreciate your attention and helping us get the word out. I don't know if Gary held this up long enough for you guys to get a good photograph of this, but let me hold that up so you can get a good shot of that. All right.
What sort of sentence? He's already in jail. What would his sentence be?
What would what be? I'm sorry.
His sentencing.
His charges that he's facing? Yes, ma'am. He's facing a first-degree felony, a second-degree murder. He's facing a third-degree felony, tampering with evidence, and I believe a misdemeanor resisting arrest charge as well. So, I'm sorry? You can do life in prison, probably, depending on your history and your record and, the way he scores out and his points and everything else. Yeah, I would imagine he's facing the rest of his life in prison. in addition to whatever charges he's facing in Georgia. So, all right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, and thank you for coming this morning. My name is Sam Taylor. I'm the Chief of Police of the Lakeland Police Department, and we're here today to give you some additional information on an arrest that we made on a homicide that occurred in 2018. An arrest that we made on a homicide that occurred in 2018.